Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. This is an amazing time to be a tech nerd, photographer, videographer. The Canon EOS R5 was released yesterday and there was a huge amount of noise made about this by several creators. The company obviously did their live stream because they can't hold the usual Canon event, and plenty of people are talking about it all over social media. Key thing that people are picking up on about this camera is, as rumored, and I have covered in several of my Camera Rumors episodes, the 8K raw video capabilities. That's right, it is 100% confirmed that 8K 12-bit full width of the monstrous 45 megapixel sensor is an actual feature of the Canon EOS R5. 8K goes up to 30p, but is also available in 24, which is great. They haven't crippled that with 25 like they accidentally on purpose did before with some of their previous cameras. And it also has 4K, wait for it, 120p. 120 frames per second in 4K is something so many videographers have dreamed of. Okay, so let's talk about some groundbreaking technology in Canon cameras. I say groundbreaking, it's groundbreaking for them because they've never done it. They finally got in-body image stabilization for the first time in an EOS camera. This stabilization is nothing short of amazing, with 8 stops of image stabilization. That's insane. That is a lot. That is huge. Practically don't even need a gimbal with stuff like that. That combined with the image stabilization in the RF lenses, you're gonna be getting some pretty steady footage, and that slow-mo, that's gonna look absolutely creamy, smooth, buttery, fluid. It's gonna be amazing. I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. What else we got? Oh yeah, the image.canon thing. The image.canon thing, and by the image.canon thing, I mean when you take photos, if it's connected to Wi-Fi, it will upload to image.canon, which you can then download directly into Lightroom, meaning that you don't need to do the whole card faffy thing. And speaking of cards, we've got 2 slots. So we've also got 20 frames a second electronic shutter, and from what I've seen, you can't actually outrun that, which is amazing. We've seen in the examples the wildlife photographers literally holding it down for time on end without anything happening. In Peter McKinnon's video, he basically held it down and took 140 frames without any delay or like buffering or anything. It was just done. Now, part of that would definitely be thanks to the CF Express. I'd like to get hands on and see if it actually happens with SD, but I can imagine they've probably done a pretty good job. Speaking of file sizes, each megapixel on Canon roughly translates to a megabyte, so 45 megapixels is 45 megabytes usually, whereas with Sony, 45 is usually like 90 or 120, depending on what you're shooting. So it's nice to know that you're going to still be able to manage these file sizes. My M50 is around about 25 megapixels, so I get 25 meg raw files from that. So yeah, you got to think like in terms of that, it's not too much. Obviously, if you're taking thousands of photos, it's quite a big difference. However, good to know that the file sizes are still going to be pretty decent. Okay, now let's talk about the camera that I am super excited for, and that is the EOS R6. Whereas the EOS R5 comes in, and I forgot to mention this, around about £4,200. The EOS R6 comes in at around about £2,500. These are both prices for body only, and this is launch price. It will go down. There'll be rebates. There'll be, yeah, you know, you're going to get money off of it at some point. Just remember that. So for most people, this camera is probably the one that they're going to be looking towards. It's the one closest in price to the original launch price of the EOS R. Now, the R6 is the little brother, but only in a few small video specs. You still got pretty much everything. You don't have the top-down screen, the same way the RP didn't have it where the R did, but you still get a 25 megapixel CMOS sensor, better in low light, less resolution. You get 20 frames a second electronic shutter, just like you do on the R5. You get 12 frames per second manual shutter, just like you do on the R5. You don't get the 8K, you don't get the 4K 120p, so you're back to 1080p, 120 frames per second. However, that's still, in my opinion, perfectly adequate for most people nowadays. You do still get 4K 60 frames though. And I've been used to using 1080p 60 frames on my M50, so using 60 frames slow-mo is something that I'm kind of used to, and I'm kind of intrigued to see what that's going to look like. Now, one of the key things for me that excited me about the R5 was the animal and human eye tracking autofocus that I've never had, that I know Sony does really well, so I was interested to see how this would perform, and the testimonials from the Canon ambassadors seem to set the record that it's just as phenomenal as we might have hoped. Now, the R6 also has the exact same autofocus that is on the R5, meaning that as a photographer, videographer, if you don't need the 8K, the 4K 120p, you can still use the great technology that Canon have been investing in and researching with their autofocus. And we all know that their dual pixel autofocus has always been the industry standard that everyone strives to achieve. So that's like pretty much all of the specs. So here are my thoughts on the release of these two cameras, which one I'm probably going to be getting, and exactly what this is going to mean for the industry moving forward, because obviously it doesn't stop here. So the R5 and the R6 are key cameras from Canon. Most Canon photographers, and I've seen this everywhere online, have been losing faith in Canon in terms of what products they're releasing and whether or not they are actually going to release anything worthwhile in the mirrorless area, because currently Sony are kind of kicking butt with that. You know, Fujifilm released new stuff, Panasonic released new stuff, there's a new GH6 apparently coming. We've got lots of good cameras coming from lots of manufacturers, and then the R series from Canon was kind of the one that just sort of sat there and didn't really wow anyone. So when all these specs were being rumored, which I was watching with a close eye, I was very excited to see what they were going to release, and not just for my benefit. Like, I want to stick with Canon, I've always shot with Canon, I enjoy Canon. As a photographer, videographer, content creator, I'm open to using whatever kit helps me get the job done. However, I enjoy the stuff that I currently use. So for me, when I was losing faith in Canon to release something, the R5 and the R6 were exactly the kinds of cameras that I was after. Now, I was actually a little bit skeptical about the R6. However, as I said, I am really excited about the R6, and this is probably going to be the camera for me. This is most likely the camera that I'm going to be ordering after the prices drop, because I know it will. I don't 100% need a brand new camera right this second. They're not shipping until the end of August, beginning of September anyway, so I'm prepared to wait, and I will continue to wait. I will let any bugs be fixed, I will let any rebates come out, any price reductions, and I suggest you probably do the same. I'm going to be getting the R6. I don't need 8K. Most people don't need 8K. Even if you're a YouTuber, you probably don't need 8K. That's just my opinion. I think, yes, you could shoot in 8K, you're going to be downsampling it, but most people at, you know, like most levels don't need 8K video. I mean, yeah, you can reframe video and all that kind of stuff, but you probably don't need it just yet. Okay, so then, and finally, my final point on this is Sony are obviously rumoring the A7S III. The camera that's been anticipated now for 3 or 4 years, we should be getting it. After this, Sony probably are going to do a typical Sony and absolute balls to the walls, all the specs, and blow most of these specs out of the water. That's just my belief. It'll go one of two ways. It will either be an absolute flop, I doubt it, or the Sony A7S III will basically be an R6, but it will probably shoot 6K. That's my expectation. It will probably shoot 6K, full frame, full sensor 6K. It will probably still be really good in low light, because that is one of the selling points. Primarily video focused, which is what the R5 is, but in my personal opinion, I reckon you'll be looking at an R6 price, R6 form factor, most of the R6 specs from photography standpoint, with 6K and incredible low light. Those are my thoughts on the matter. That is my reaction to the EOS R5, EOS R6 launch. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope, you know, there was some thought there, some opinions that, you know, made you think. If you've got any comments, any questions, suggestions, any counter arguments to anything that I've said, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I love talking about this stuff. This is, you know, this is my passion. I absolutely love photography, videography, and technology in general. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, get subscribed, and like the bell to stay up to date for whenever I release a new video. But until the next one, see ya.